God is good, and with each day that passes brings us a day closer to the launch of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This is the Nathan NAPALM channel, and if you are new here, please consider subscribing, especially if you're interested in Pantheon related content on our march to launch. Today, guys, I want to talk a little bit about Vanguard Saga of Heroes. So, as many of you already know, I've been streaming this game for the past little bit now, playing in the Vanguard emulation server because the official Vanguard live server shut down back in 2014. So I heard that the simulation server was coming along pretty nicely. A lot of people were telling me you need to dive in and check it out. So I did, and I've been doing that in my free time for a while now before I started streaming, just kind of playing around with it and seeing if the game even worked. And I was very happy to find that it does, and it works really well. So I said, you know what, I'm going to start streaming it and see what the community thinks about it. And the community loved it. So they started joining in on the game, and they started playing with me. We ran some groups together, and now the world is starting to feel more alive because there's people from the community, specifically Pantheon community, playing the game. So I tell you what we did. We decided that we were going to start a guild. And yes, there are still bugs, there are still issues in the game. There's some things that don't work altogether, alright? Because basically this emulation server, I want to get up front, is in alpha stage. So it's not complete. Is there enough to do here to play and have a guild and run dungeons and group up and experience and all that kind of thing? Yes, there is. There's also a lot of things you may not like, such as if you beat the Isle of Dawn, which is an optional newbie type continent, then you, at the end of that quest, of all those quest lines, you actually get a flying mount. Also, you can actually put in commands to change your level, to warp around the world, all kinds of things, because they want people to be testing and trying out the various parts of the game, reporting bugs, and all the kind of things you'd expect from alpha. So it is kind of a weird game for us to jump into. Let me explain though. This was Brad McQuaid's final released world. Pantheon will be his final actual world, but Vanguard he saw all the way through. It's a beautiful game. Unfortunately, it's sunsetted due to publisher issues. I have a whole video about that called Vanguard, the Saga of Heroes, and you can check that out and hear the whole story, what happened there and why the game didn't make it. But here's the deal, the game's running right now better than I've ever seen it run on this emulation server, mainly due to technology being way better than it was in 2007 when this game launched. But you'll see just how advanced this game really was, and most jarringly, most surprisingly, you'll see that Pantheon is kind of a Vanguard 2.0. It doesn't get talked about that way, right? But once you start playing Vanguard, you'll see things like the perception system, right? Not to the extent, obviously, that Pantheon's doing it, but you'll see it in the game where things pop up and you go in a dungeon, or a little thing pops up telling you to go check something out, or that you notice something, or you hear something like a dungeon master talking to you kind of thing. And it really, immediately you're like, wow, this was like the beginning days of the perception system. And there's all kinds of other goodies, many that I haven't even discovered yet. They're hidden in this gargantuan game, which is 3 huge continents filled with content and things to do. I highly recommend only using the level command in order to maybe group up with somebody that's a lower level than you so that you can play with them, so we can all have groups and get going. As far as population, that's the other thing I really need to touch on this server. So as of now, the population's not so hot. When I first started streaming it and playing it, I would notice maybe 5 to 12 people on at a time, which surprisingly, because everybody's pretty much playing in the low level areas at that time, you would still see a couple of people running around, but it was definitely felt pretty dead, right? Well, now that I've started streaming it, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but there is now, I'm starting to see the population spiking, you know, 50 players, I think it got to 40, 30 people on it at any given time pretty much. And that's because of this community. That's because people saw how cool it was and the game worked, and they've always heard good things, maybe never had a chance to play it. Maybe their computer wouldn't run it back then, or whatever the case may be. They just didn't play the game back then. So it's a great time to hop on. You can join my guild, which is the Knights of Napalm. I usually have recruiters online. If you see somebody, you're probably going to see, for the most part, that they're probably part of my guild. so you can, send them a tell or talk to them, and they can get you with the recruiter, so we can get you invited into the guild, so you can, just make it easier to find groups and chat with us as we play. But guys, I highly recommend giving this game a shot. It's free, it's an emulator server. I'll have in the description for this video all the links you need to get started, and it's the only way to play this game. If there was a live server, I would absolutely recommend we play on the live server official, but there is not one. So I do recommend that this is our only way to play Brad McQuaid's last world he made before Pantheon, so that we can have something to do, we can hang out, we can group up, play together, and just have a good old-fashioned time while we wait for Pantheon. And hopefully, with the spur of people coming into the game, there are devs constantly on. As a matter of fact, they're very friendly. They'll speak in world chat and everything and see how everybody's doing. They're pretty excited, it seems like, to be getting a revival of people into their game to start playing it in this alpha stage that the emulator is in. And I do want to stress that the game runs really freaking good. I mean, very minimal problems. Yes, some problems, right? During streaming, I glitched and was able to run through the ocean for a while, and I actually used that to my advantage to kind of test out what I could and couldn't do. And, there's things that have happened. Sometimes you get kicked from server. Sometimes servers go down. There are issues. It's in alpha, and it's an emulator. So, if you're willing to deal with some very small things and you really want to explore a really cool world, Telon is fantastic. Plenty to do. Lots of quests. Tons of cool dungeons, man. That classic kind of dungeon design. I mean, this game gets you in a dungeon so quickly. You will be in a dungeon so quickly. We ran straight to a dungeon as soon as I pretty much logged in on my first stream. At like level 1 and 2, we were running through a dungeon, and it was a ton of fun. And, the dungeons get better as the levels go up and the mobs get harder. So I definitely recommend it, guys. I just want to put this out there because I wanted as many people to join us as possible, because I think we can have a really good time exploring Brad McQuaid's world here. And it's a world that didn't get explored as much as it deserved. It's a game that didn't get the credit it deserved, and it has a lot of really cool features in it that I think that you'll find really exciting. Now, at the same time, a lot of people started playing Reign of Darkness at my suggestion recently, and I will say that Reign of Darkness is a great game, right? When you first start playing, it definitely has that sense of wonder and that kind of adventure kind of feeling to it, and I had a great time in that game. However, that game is very early in the development cycle, and the amount of content there is a little lacking after you do the 3 dungeons and do them on, higher difficulties. That's kind of all there is to do at this time, unless you're into PvP and you want to go out into that. So I did want to touch on that a little bit, because Reign of Darkness is very cool, especially by the time you play most of the game, it's going to feel a lot like Diablo, random loot and building your class however you want in Reign of Darkness, to be honest. But Vanguard is a little bit more like Pantheon. It's a little bit more structured. It's more of an MMO. It's a lot larger. There's more to discover. There's more to do. Plus all these little features, man, that Pantheon has, including some of the class layouts, right? Like, a lot of the classes in Vanguard are super similar to the descriptions and the kind of things we're hearing about the classes in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. So definitely, I think this is the game to check out if you really are salivating at the mouth wanting to play Pantheon. I think Vanguard is the closest option. I mean, it's pretty obvious, to be honest, being that this was the last game made by Brad McQuaid, but I just felt like a lot of people didn't realize this emulator was as far along as it is. So you've probably been watching the clips up above where you can kind of see where I was playing on these are clips from the live stream. But guys, you can crank these graphics up and you can really make it beautiful. So I highly encourage getting in here, playing this game, having a good time. Join my guild, the Knights of Napalm, and we'll see you there. And of course, I'll be streaming this game going forward for a while. I really enjoy it, so look forward to more streams. And until next time, guys, God bless and happy gaming.
Listen to what I say. I've been making videos all day. My friends all say I'm it's a video buffet. You can even hit replay. But please just subscribe. I can't even describe being part of my tribe. I'll even offer you a prize. But please just subscribe and hit the bell notification too.